Good afternoon. It's time for another edition of ECTEL Bytes. It's our 9th episode and our final episode for 2021. And with me is our acting managing director, Ms. Cheryl Hector Fontenelle. And we're going to be talking about our accomplishments, our challenges, and plans in store for 2022. But before I go into that, I'm your host, Curtis Cooks-Charles, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. And by now you should know what we're about, who we are, but in case it's your first time joining us, I'd just like to remind you that ECTEL is a regulatory body for telecommunications in our 5 member states, namely the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And ECTEL is made up of 3 components: the Council of Ministers, Regional Directorate, and there is the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission in each member state. So, Ms. Fontenelle, welcome.
Thank you, Director.
All right. So we're going to jump right into it because it's ECTEL Bytes and we try to keep it short yet spicy. So tell us a bit about the various departments of the Directorate and their roles.
Okay, thank you. ECTEL, while we are a relatively small organization, we actually have 6 functional departments. The first one is the Office of the Managing Director, and that is headed by the Managing Director. And it's really responsible just for the overall management of the entire directorate. Then we have our Legal Affairs Department. Their main role is to provide advice on all matters related to legal and regulatory affairs, and in particular, licensing, how to handle customer complaints, and addressing compliance of telecom operators with the Telecoms Act and regulations. And that department is headed by the General Counsel. We have a Technical Services Department headed by the Director of Technical Services, and that department deals with spectrum management. Now, for us, spectrum is very important. That is sort of the lifeblood of the telecommunications industry. In fact, without spectrum, your mobile phone will not work. So very important that we have a department that is dedicated towards management of spectrum. They also manage numbers, also required for us to make our phone calls. And so very important departments at ECTEL. The Economics and Finance Department, headed by the Director of Economics and Finance, deals with tariff and pricing issues. Very important again for customers that prices are affordable. Then in terms of our operations, we have an accounts department, and like any accounts department, they're responsible for preparation of our annual budget, as well as the management of our finances. And without the HR department, none of this would make sense. So we have our HR and administrative department led by the HR manager, and they're responsible for staff relations, staff engagement, as well as general administration of ECTEL.
Thanks for that, Ms. Fontenelle. So what are some of the major projects and programs undertaken in 2021, and in what way will these initiatives benefit consumers of electronic communications in our 5 member states?
Well, we all know 2021 was a very challenging year. But in spite of that, I think by the start of 2021, most of us had kind of figured out a way to work in this new world where you were pretty much converting your home to your office. And so during 2021, we were able to make recommendations to NTRC, that's our National Telecommunication Regulatory Commission, on a number of matters, including licensing arrangements, frequency authorizations, and as I indicated, spectrum. For you to use spectrum, you must have a valid frequency authorization. So very important so that we ensure that there is no interference between spectrum users. Interconnection agreements, which allow providers to allow customers from one provider to speak to another provider. We also provide advice on customer complaints. Again, very important that we resolve any issues that customers raise from time to time, and also advice on how services should be priced. Another major project that we undertook was the spectrum management project. That is a long, ongoing project that we have been working on, very involved, and it involves coming up with a way to manage spectrum more efficiently. And we are at the end of that project where we have already started to install fixed probes, which will allow us to monitor spectrum use in the member states. And as I indicated before, it is very important that we know whether or not persons are using spectrum with or without a license, to ensure that spectrum is managed efficiently and that customers can make use of telecom services. We have published our annual sector review. It's a document that we publish every year, and the 2020 edition was published, and it's now available on our website. It provides key information on the sector, and in particular, including information such as like broadband penetration, revenue, investment in the sector, and a number of other key indicators. We worked on a new visualization project, very important for us. We have a lot of data on the sector, but this is not easily accessible to customers and to anybody right now. And so we have worked on a project which will launch early next year, which will allow persons easy access to telecom data on the sector in all 5 member states. And also we did a consultation on retail pricing because we had planned to implement a new price regulatory regime in 2022. So this is just a handful of the number of projects, but as you indicated with ECTEL Bytes, we can talk about everything. So just to give a flavor of what it is that we have been up to in 2021.
Indeed, and if you missed it, we had Alvin earlier speaking about Spectrum. So you could go back on our page and watch that interview. He went very detailed into why Spectrum is important. And, you know, sometimes you hear the terms and you're like, what is Spectrum? But he really broke it down. And I didn't even know that some vehicles can operate without Spectrum. So you might think of your cell phone and the computer, but imagine transportation, TV remote, and a whole host of things. So go back into our archives and check out that interview with Alvin. And I'm looking forward to speaking with the Economic and Finance Department about the data visualization program. So we're going to be talking to them hopefully early in the new year about that project. Thanks, Ms. Fontenelle. So there were some new additions to the Council of Ministers and Board of Directors. Tell us more about that. Who was appointed, their countries, and how long is their tenure?
Okay, thank you. So we have the Council of Ministers, and that is made up of the Minister with responsibility for electronic communications in each of our member states. And this year we had one new member to the council, and that was Minister Stevenson King from St. Lucia. And he joined the council, and soon thereafter, on October 1st, was assumed the chairmanship of the Council of Ministers. He was immediately preceded by the Minister for St. Kitts, Minister Akila Byron Nisbet, who was the first female to be, I think, on the council, and also to be the chairperson of the Council of Ministers. So that was a milestone for ECTEL. The other members that have been there at least for at least 1 year or more, we have from Dominica, Minister Oscar George, from Grenada, Minister Nolan Cox, and then from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Minister Camilo Gonzalez. In terms of the board of directors, the ministers with responsibility for electronic communications by treaty are to appoint one person to the board as a director and another person as the alternate. And at present, we have, in 2021, I believe we have 3 board members. The current chairman of the board, Mr. Dwayne Noel from Grenada, he has been on the board for a while. Mr. Gregory Shillingford, representing Dominica, is the previous chairman, and he has been on the board for about 1 year or 2. I should note that every year the board sits for 1 year, and every year board members have to be reappointed. So in the case of Mr. Noel and Mr. Shillingford, they were reappointed to the board. But we had new appointments this year from St. Kitts, Mr. Trevor Phipps, from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Mr. Mark Richardson, and then from St. Lucia, Mr. Philip Dalsu.
Okay, thanks for that. And if in case you missed the last program, we had Chairman Noel on speaking to us. So again, go take a watch and learn more about what he had to say as a board of director for ECTEL. Okay, so we're getting ready to launch an exciting education public awareness campaign to promote the passage of the Electronic Communications Bill in our member states. The EC Bill will benefit consumers in many ways. For example, more affordable access to all electronic services. The EC Bill guarantees the efficient resolutions of complaints and disputes with retail customers, and there will be transparent billing, no more hidden charges. So how important is the enforcement of the EC Bill to promote digital transformations?
Thank you. The EC Bill is really pivotal for the digital transformation of the ECTEL member states. On November 30th, we had the launch of the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, very important project. A number of regional agencies, ECTEL being one of them, the ECCB, the OECS, CARICOM Impacts, all come together because the digital transformation is an all-encompassing project. No part of the economy will be left untouched. But in order to do that, you must have a robust regulatory framework. And that's where the EC bill comes into play. It is really very, very vital that we have clear rules of engagement in the electronic communication sector if we are to have the digital economy run essentially on that platform. And so the success of the digital economy will really, really rely on every citizen being able to connect and being able to have affordable access to broadband technology. You can do it no other way. And that is where, again, we as the regulators for the telecommunications or electronic communication sector come in. What we would like is to get to a point where every citizen of the ECTEL member states and the OECS at large is able to use the internet in a very meaningful way. They have access to it every day, it is affordable, they have the devices they need, they have the data and the speed that they need. And that is where the new tools that will be available to us under the ECTEL will come in. One of the concerns that we have right now is that the Telecommunications Act is 20 years old. The economy and the sector has moved well past what the rules in the Telecommunications Act will allow us to do. And so what we will be doing our education and awareness project, what we will be making clear to our member states as well as to consumers is that there are significant new tools available to us in the electronic communications field that will help us to ensure that we have the infrastructure we need for that digital economy and for the digital transformation. And in addition to that, I also just want to note that there are a number of gaps that we have found for the provision of broadband. For example, in order for you to get broadband, since we are islands, you must have efficient access to other islands and to the US and to Europe and to everything, which means you need access to what is called a submarine cable. And right now, access to submarine cable is not really regulated by the regulator, which means that the price is set at whatever the submarine cable operator decides is that day. And that makes it very difficult for small operators just entering the market to really come and compete. And under the ECB, we will have new rules about how submarine cable is to be regulated. And the intention is not to make it so that the submarine cable project cannot make any money. The intention is to make sure that we have fair access to that submarine cable capacity, because it is essential if we want to have a truly digitally transformed economy, we must have fair access to submarine cable capacity. So there are a number of ways that the ECB will shift us away from where we are and will ensure that the digital transformation is actually possible.
It does sound like a lot of work, Ms. Fontenelle.
Yes, it's a lot of work.
But at the same time, it sounds extremely important. You know, I was speaking to somebody recently in one of the other Caribbean countries, and it's an older person. And I think that the fear of technology, he does not have an ATM card. So he joins the line every time for transactions. So, you know, when you made reference earlier to the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project and ECCB being there, and then they have Dcash. So it's not just one entity or one segment. It's really all in. Yes, that is so true. So hopefully, you know, it will really help the older folks who have this fear of technology, you know, to simplify it somewhat. So we do have our work cut out for us. Yes. So with the increased reliance on electronic communications due to the pandemic, how would the EC bill allow consumers to experience better quality service?
Yes, quality of service we have recognized is it's a troubling matter, and it is a matter that has been very difficult for us to sort of get a full handle on. And in addition to the EC bill, as I mentioned before, there is that whole Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. And a significant component of that project is actually, of that overall project is a program to completely revamp our quality of service regulations, as well as just our enforcement of it, our ability to enforce it. Because right now we know that we have a scenario where customers will complain about quality of service, but we can't verify their complaint, we can't verify their assertions. And if the service provider says, well, I've addressed it, we also can't verify that. And so with the new tools under the EC bill, in addition to the project on the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, you will now have a sort of coming together of two important aspects of the electronic communications to address this matter. I won't just address this matter, it will address knock-on matters and not just the quality of service in terms of the technical quality of service, but also the quality of service from the experience of the customer, how the customer experiences the service. because there is right now we know that there's a divide between what the service providers is saying that they offer versus what the customer believes that they're receiving, and we want to try to bridge that divide.
All right, so that was quite a bit on the exciting education and public awareness campaign, which we hope to launch early in the new year. And it's not just for ECTEL to be the advocates, but we're really hoping that the citizens in the region will understand the benefits as outlined earlier by Ms. Fontenelle, because it is truly for your benefits. Yes? All right, so we're about to wrap up. The directorate has accomplished quite a bit. You heard it earlier, but I am sure not without challenges. What are some of the major issues that arose during the year, and how has ECTEL handled them?
I would say the major issue is the same issue I think that has affected a lot of people, which is essentially the ongoing impact of the pandemic on pretty much just disrupting our work-life balance or work-life, the separation of work from home, because you work from home, you're not even sure if it's your home or your work now. And one of the things that we have tried to do is to review our workload, because I think when the pandemic started, we all felt that we could continue business as usual, we just work at home the same way we were working before the pandemic, and we quickly realized that that really was not going to work. And so we've had to review our workload and to try to make sure that we try to be clear. Still, I don't believe we have been as successful as we would like to be, but try to just have a moment to disconnect, to make sure that you are sort of refueling and recharging yourself so that you can perform your best at work. In terms of the sector itself, I think a continued challenge, and really it's ugly head, I think, during the pandemic even more so, is that a number of students actually do not have access to broadband capacity. Some of them only have access to a phone. So the cost of broadband and the accessibility for all is not yet there. And that is why we are saying that we need to shift away from the current Telecommunications Act, which is very service provider focused, that is in my view, to a system that is more customer focused, where you're trying to make sure that there is an affordable version of whatever service that is out there that the average person can access and can use in a useful way. And so that has been one of the challenges, and the way that we are proposing to address it is by redoubling our efforts and essentially putting all our efforts to making everybody understand that we must shift. We cannot solve the problems that we have right now with the old tools that we have. In order to solve new problems, we need new tools. And with that shift, hopefully early next year, we expect that we will be able to start addressing, because in the ECTEL, it allows us to directly address the issue of affordability, something that is not available to us under the current telecommunications.
I'm sorry for really asking this question, but just to break it down, you said the issue of affordability. Are you speaking of the devices or like the internet services? What are we speaking
Well,
of?
we start with the service. And under the Universal Service Fund, we can then address the devices. So we're talking about addressing all of it.
Wow.
Because even with the Universal Service, what we also found was that there was some ambiguity in the language. Some persons thought that it was not clear that you could fund a device using the Universal Service Fund, and the ECTEL addresses that issue by redefining Universal Service to make it clear that devices are part of what can be funded under the Universal Service. So there's no ambiguity there. And so on the one hand, you will address the devices, and then on the other hand, through the retail tariff regulation, you can address the cost of service. So again, you're sort of tackling it from all sides as well. Wow. And that is why we are trying to next year, as you know, we're going to go flat out. So make people understand, make all our stakeholders understand we need to shift away from a system that is simply no longer working for us to something where we have so many more useful tools that should benefit customers.
It truly is not working, you know. And again, I like to use real life examples, because when you think of some of these topics, they're so technical, but when you talk to persons, I was speaking to a lady, she lost her house in a fire last year, and she has 5 children. And I think one of them resides with a relative in the countryside, and the others live with her. And she literally uses her phone when she gets home for her children to do their homework. And I was floored. And she's not the only one. She said that she got the MiFi device through the Universal Service Fund, but no device as it. So it comes back to what you're saying. You
Yes.
can't have one thing and the other, it defeats the purpose.
It defeats the purpose, exactly.
So this is indeed a really good product. And if we can, not if, when we get it done, it will really benefit those amongst us who are truly in need. All right, so I know earlier we mentioned the data visualization project, which we're going to launch early next year, and then we have the ECTEL campaign. Are there any other major plans for 2022?
In 2022, I mean, these two are going to be sort of they're going to lead the way. Certainly the ECTEL, because, and as I indicated before, in terms of the challenges, recognizing that if we spread ourselves too thin, especially given the unfortunately the challenges of the pandemic, like we were doing for a little while, then it makes it difficult for us to really have the impact that we want. So our big focus is going to be that ECTEL promulgation campaign awareness program. That's going to be a big one. But we are also going to put some effort into the quality of service. So as I indicated, we have a project. We will start the actual groundwork next year. So we will be putting some effort because we need that solved sort of almost whether or not we move to the ECTEL. And so we have a plan to tackle quality of service starting next year. That will take up quite a bit of our time also. And consumer protection, to put more effort on consumer protection. Again, we hope that will be done in the context of the ECTEL having been passed early in the year. So by the time we get to the middle of the year, we can sort of then be implementing the tools, starting to use the tools that the ECTEL will provide. But even so, we are still planning that we will take a stab at some of these matters, because it is so important that we address these matters. And I want to just say, our project is always, the reason for ECTEL is to provide advice to the NTRCs and the member states on all matters to do with telecommunication. So regardless of what else we are doing, that will always remain our number one priority. So whatever issues or concerns that rear their heads during the course of the year from the NTRCs, from any of our member states, we will be addressing those issues front and center.
Okay. That sounds like quite a bit. And
quite
persons might think the secretariat is massive. They're not. It's like 24 staff thereabouts. However, we do quite a bit. So keep up the excellent work, team. So we are about to wrap up, and this is the first time we're trying this because we're in the holiday season, and so we have a lighter side of ECTEL Bytes to close off. So I'm going to ask Ms. Fontenelle a few questions about Christmas. So what's your favorite Christmas song?
I think that one is easy because Poinsettia Blossoms. It's one of those songs that I remember that song as a child, and every time I hear it, in fact, I only realized when I was an adult, that's actually from St. Lucia, because I was hearing that I grew up in Dominica, listening to the Dominica, I think I just assumed it was from Dominica. And it just always reminds me of Christmas, no matter what time of year I hear it. So that song is Poinsettia Blossoms. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a Christmas song or not.
It sounds like it could be one. All right. What about your favorite Christmas food?
Most definitely ham. I think that's the only time of year I really sort of eat ham, because that's the sort of the time here we can get what we call like the real ham, as opposed to whatever it is they sell in the supermarket the rest of the year. So I would say most definitely ham.
Really? I could
and
do
ginger beer.
Oh, ginger beer.
Ginger beer. I'm sorry. I'm like the only person who wasn't just.
I think so. Caribbean person.
Yes, I'm like, no, thank you.
So fruitcake doesn't fall anywhere at all?
Neither fruitcake. I'm not a big fruitcake or sorry fan, so yes, sorry. So technically, I'm probably not Christmas.
And the final one, what about your favorite Christmas movie?
Again, for that one, the one that comes to mind right now is like A Christmas Carol, and I hope I have the right one with the guy in the leg lamp. It was one of those movies that you saw and you keep seeing a little snippet. You saw it one time, and after that, you only ever see like a piece of it one day as you're going past. Okay. But that's what comes to mind.
Okay. I think mine is Home Alone for some strange reason. Never get tired of Home Alone.
I saw it once and that was enough for me.
All right. So that was the lighter side of ECTEL Bytes. So any closing words before I wrap up? Yes,
just to thank the team. As I said, it was a challenging year. I think mostly because we went into the year thinking it was going to be slightly better than 2020. And I dare say for us, certainly in St. Lucia, I think it was slightly worse in terms of the actual pandemic. And so just to thank the ECTEL team, the management team, as well as the staff for their continued dedication and commitment. As I indicated, in spite of the challenges, we were still able to get quite a bit of work done, and we continue to do so today. And also just to continue to thank the Council of Ministers and our Board of Directors for their continued support all the way. Our NTRCs, again, a true partner in this regulatory environment. Also our other regional partners, the ECCB, the OECS, the ITU Regional Office, and other regional regulatory agencies that have also been very, very kind whenever we require assistance. I think we have a good sort of working relationship in the Caribbean among our professional organizations. And then just to wish, all the best compliments of the seasons to the staff of ECTEL and all our stakeholders, and the very best wishes for 2022. It has to be better than 2021.
Yes, I pray so. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ms. Fontenelle. It was indeed a pleasure to spend time with you. I've been wanting you on the show, and it took the final show to get around, but it was really worth it. I learned a lot. I'm hoping that you did too. You really painted a clear picture of what we did throughout the year and our plans for 2022. And it's quite a bit, but I am confident that the staff in conjunction with our partners will get it done. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and we'll get right back to you. And if you have not yet followed us on social media, we are at ECTEL Authority on Instagram and Twitter, and at ECTEL on YouTube and Facebook. Very easy to remember. So go ahead, give us a like and follow us for more updates. And ECTEL Bytes is a production of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority. As mentioned, this is our last show for 2021. So thanks so much for those who have watched, those who have shared the links with others. We appreciate you, and I hope that you will join us again next year. We typically come on the 4th Wednesday of the month. So all going well, we should be back on January 26th for episode 10. If you're going to be on before, I will be sure to let you know. So I'm Cheryl Hector Charles, the host of ECTEL Bytes and ECTEL Communications and Media Relations Manager, saying thank you so very much, and do keep safe for the holidays, and we will see you again next year. Bye.
Bye.